Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I have my friend and colleague here on Zoom. Chanci Dawn is a non-diet nutritionist and life coach, and she's here to tell her dating after divorce story. So welcome, Chanci. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is just so great. And I loved that we met by me asking you to be on my podcast. And
I know.
Like, oh, that's so fun.
Right. And you were divorced and repartnered. And I was like, wait, you are? Oh my God. I'm really excited for you to be here. Please just kind of introduce yourself to the listeners. Tell them who you are, what you do.
Sure. So yes, I'm Chanci and I live on Vancouver Island in Canada. And I was a nutritionist that really worked deep in the diet industry for a long time. And I built an entire network marketing business around helping women shrink themselves. But what over time, what I really learned and what I saw and what I just grew in my own personal journey as well was realizing I don't want to shrink. I don't want to shrink in any way. I want to live my life big, right? And so part of that was stop trying to shrink my body and learn how to actually love her, honor her, and move her and feed her in a way that makes her thrive. And then just trusting that wherever she's going to settle at as far as weight, that is where she's meant to be. So it was my own journey. And then I just I trained as a weight loss coach and I'm like, this just doesn't jive anymore, right? So I retrained in embodiment and really just sort of reframed my whole approach. So now I consider myself an embodied nutritionist. So doing exactly what I was just sharing. And I have a beautiful business around helping women heal the relationships with food in their body and living large. So It's just so fun. Yeah.
I love it. And I'm really tempted to dive more. I'm already totally into that conversation again, but I'm going to say, okay, we're not going to talk all that today.
Right.
What is your podcast? I want to send the listeners to your podcast so they can hear more about that. Because we did a podcast episode and we talked at length about this issue. So I was about to say, we spent decades of our lives on this diet weight loss treadmill, and it's insane. What's the name of your podcast?
Yeah, my podcast is called It Tastes Like Freedom, and you can find it everywhere.
Okay. So, and I just wanted to throw that out there for those of you that are more curious about, non-diet nutrition and how to love your body and how to help it thrive. Definitely check out the podcast and check out my episode that's coming out.
Yes. Probably next week. Yeah, I think it's scheduled for next week and it's a good one. I'm so pumped for it.
So, because I want to kind of constrain this to your divorce journey. But I will ask, I'm curious, did weight have any part to play in your first marriage and your divorce? Was there any of this thinking that impacted that relationship?
Absolutely, it did. Absolutely. I met my ex-husband when I was 19 and really full into an eating disorder, actually, at the time. And he was really attracted to my tiny body. And it was very difficult as I started healing myself and gaining really healthy weight. He didn't like that. And there was a lot of really mean comments made. But that was sort of his jam, was really mean comments. So it just was par for the course, but it really was so difficult. It was so difficult. And then, at the very end, when we were almost done, I had a girls' night and we were all drinking some wine and complimenting each other. And the girls were like, you have a really great ass, right? And they were telling me this. And that's the first time I ever heard anything like that. I'm like, really? Wow. Thank you. And then the next day I went and I said, do you like my butt? Like we've been married for however, like over 10 years. Is that something that you enjoy about me? Right. And he was like, well, when you were about 20 pounds thinner, it was great. He's like, but now, and I remember my heart just went like, what the hell am I doing with this man? For so many things. And it wasn't the catalyst, obviously, to us breaking up and separating and eventually divorcing, but it really solidified, like, I want to be living in happiness and joy and freedom in my body and be able to be in a relationship where I feel sensual and free and, sexual, and our play can be so fun and free. And I'm like, I can't be that in this. As much, and I was trying to manage my mind because I was a coach at that time. I was just, no, this circumstance sucks. I'm not going to think anything different about it. Yeah, absolutely.
And we don't have to. That's the other thing about kind of we can change our thoughts and we can, be grateful and thankful for what we have, but we also have agency, which is what I like to tell my clients is you have agency. You actually get to choose. Right. And sometimes the reason we're trying to fit ourselves into this little box is because we feel like, we can't choose something different. So we have to change our thoughts about it and all of that. But if you want something different, sometimes it's okay.
So, okay. And then, it wasn't long after that we did separate and I started dating and, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is fun. And it was intimidating at first, right? I'm like, what do I wear on these dates? And, and obviously I call her our brat brain, right? That primal part of our brain. And the brat brain was screaming at me, you're not good enough. He's not going to accept you. They're going to judge you. Like, who do you think you are? All of these different thoughts. But what I really discovered was there's just so much, joy when you can own who you are and move forward. And like we were saying on the podcast that I interviewed, this is for me and I'm dating for me and I'm putting myself out there for me. And I'm perhaps being intimate with these, men for me and stepping into that truth. It really, really helped in so many different ways moving forward in the dating scene.
Yeah, I love that you said that because I envision it. It's sort of like a way that resonates in my brain. Like when I was dating, I was like, I am on a journey to gift myself a partner who is ideal for me. So when it's sort of like when you're going out to buy a dress, like say it's your birthday, and you're like, okay, I'm going to buy a fabulous dress for me as my birthday gift to myself. That's kind of how I envisioned my dating journey. I was like, no, it's not me putting myself out there like a piece of meat on the slab, hoping someone comes and picks me up and takes me home.
Right? Like anyone. Yeah. I
was like, no, I want to gift myself this relationship. So it almost didn't matter. The guy's thoughts almost didn't matter.
Totally. And I experienced, in my dating, so I was divorced over probably, I think 13 years ago. Right. So I've had many years dating and exploring in this avenue and, and then I met my partner I am now. And during that, there was a lot of different experiences. Some men were like, oh, you're so curvy and beautiful. And yeah, I love your ass. I actually heard that so many times. I'm like, see?
I knew it.
It is good. Right. So that was an experience. And then I had, like I shared with you actually, right. I think it was with you. I shared it with, but I was online talking to some guy on Tinder. And then he was like, hey, let's meet up. We had a great conversation going. And then I'm like, absolutely. And then I was prompted to read his profile thing again. And the very last thing was saying, I forget exactly how he wrote it, but he's not interested in curvy women, right? And so I'm like, well, okay, I need to let him know. Like I'm definitely the curvy category. So I said that to him, and I didn't even hear back. He just blocked me.
Yeah, he was very clear. He was like, no, for sure, definitely.
Totally.
And I thought that you had those, that contrast because you realized that it had nothing to do with you.
Absolutely.
Because
absolutely.
you have all the people who are like, oh my God, those curves are amazing. And then you have the person who's like, nope, curves are not for me. Yeah. And what I always want to try to communicate to people is that, like, listen, don't, and women are conditioned to do this. We're conditioned to sort of see ourselves the way other people see us versus seeing ourselves for who we really are. It's like when you hear those comments or whatever, like it's about that person's thinking. You could just swap out another woman and they would have the same thoughts that they have. It's not you in particular.
Absolutely. And that's where I love working with the thought model in that, right? Going, oh, okay, this is the result he's getting. So what is he actually thinking to take these actions of blocking me? I'm like, right, I am absolutely neutral. I am the circumstance. I am neutral. And there's just so much freedom in that when you can really embrace that and move forward in that empowered place where it is their thoughts, and I get to be in this playground of dating and meeting people and showing up for myself. And in that, it's discovering more of who I am and more of what I want. I don't want someone who is going to pressure me to diet. Absolutely not. So thank goodness he blocked me, right? Like, I'm not going to lie, it did sting. I was like, what? Whoa. And then felt my emotions. I let it, run through me. There was anxiety, there was self-doubt, there was a lot there. And then I went for a walk and then I came back and I'm like, next. And that felt really liberating. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Because with that disappointment, processing that disappointment is so important.
Yeah.
Right. Like when there's a disappointment, because it is, you do experience that disappointment along the way when you're dating. Like it's just, and so you said you were single for 10 years after the divorce?
Yeah. Well, I did have a committed relationship in between as well. So I was married and then I guess 3 years single, dating, and single and not dating as well. Took time for myself. And then I was with a man for about 4 years there. And then really, it was a great relationship. We're still friends. He was a great guy, but I really showed up for myself there. And it was very, very difficult, but I moved on from it because I'm like, this is great. I really, care about him. But this is more of a friendship. And through this experience, I really know myself. I really, really know myself. And I'm like, what do I want in a relationship? So going through a really rough marriage, healing, meeting this new person, being in this healing relationship, and then moving on from that felt terrifying, but I'm so proud of myself that I did it. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, here I am back in the dating. Here I am like, oh, Plenty of Fish is no longer around here, what we do. So I'm like, here's Tinder. Okay, now I got to learn that's right. And then Facebook dating. And it's like this whole new experience. But again, when I entered into it the second time, I was a very different woman than the first time. And that is, I love that you have people make their list and find that clarity, because I absolutely did that. And it wasn't long before I magnetized. Magnetized, is that the right word? I don't know. Yeah, magnetized. Yeah. I am into my life. And we've been together almost 2 years now. And it's really, really beautiful.
That is amazing. That is amazing. I want to ask you about kind of like that terror of moving out of what was a good, but not the relationship for you. Because I think women go through this kind of like as a cycle along the way, like when they have met someone who is nice, like a nice guy. I really don't have a lot of trouble helping my ladies let go of the guys who are jerks. Like, if he's a jerk or if he's, all of that, that's easy. If he's avoidant, if he's being mean, it's when they meet a nice guy, because there's that scarcity that there's not a lot of nice guys out there. So there's the scarcity. So when they meet a nice guy who's a good person, the relationship feels good, but it's not what they set out to look for.
Yeah.
I know women who experience that same terror of having to let go of this in order to find the right one.
Yes. And I was at a grocery store and I looked at their little thing of inspirational books and whatever. And there was one and it said, give up the good and go for the great. And such a simple thing. I've probably heard it and seen it a million times before, but that moment, I remember standing there and going, my whole body was like, this is really important for you. This is really, really important. And then I started the process of ending the relationship. And I remember the thoughts, will anyone love me as much as he does? Will I find this again? And am I willing to like bet on myself? I guess that's right. Where like really show up for myself, willing to risk that I might not. Am I important enough to leave something where I felt cherished, adored, like he loved me. And it was such a healing, like I said, healing experience. But I'm like, I'm willing to let that go. I'm willing to not find that again, to be able to really show up for myself. Right. And that was really scary, but I have, and I actually feel it's a different type. It's my relationship right now. My ex really put me on a pedestal, right? That's how I felt, like I was on a pedestal. I could do no wrong. And now I'm in a relationship where I'm very challenged, which is so good. And we're growing together, and he doesn't let me get away with my drama because I love to bring that in sometimes. And it's actually, I'm like, this is really what I needed, really what I wanted. And I'm so proud of myself for doing the hard in order to get there, for sure.
Yeah. Because I can imagine that if you're on a pedestal, then there's no growth.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's no growth because you're already amazing. So it's like, well, yeah, but I want to grow, or you can't be human or show your humanity because this person needs you to be this perfect person in order for them to be happy.
Yeah, there was that for sure. And there was just a, loss of respect, I feel, because he was such a nice guy, but almost to the point, like I said, I could get away with anything. Yeah. And for example, this is a big one. At the end of our relationship, we went out for lunch, and I had a conversation that I'm feeling attracted to someone else, right? Like we were talking about this, and he said, do you want to have sex with him? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
That's what being attracted means.
Right? Exactly. I'm like, yeah, no, like my body is like, hello. Right. And he said, well, okay, you absolutely can, as long as I'm there. And I'm like, wow. And that's not what I'm all about. Like for some people, they'd be like, wow, thank you. This is such a gift, right? In our relationship, this is where I want to go. For me, I'm the kind of woman, because I'm this strong A-type driven woman. I want a man who's like, this is my woman. I'm going to throw her over my shoulder and like claim her, right? Not in like a brutal way, but if he would have said, okay, I get this. Let's work through this together. You are so important to me, and that we have no room for that in our relationship. However he wanted to say it, that's what I was craving. And it was the opposite. So right then I was like, yeah, no, this is so important, that I move on. Yeah. And my guy now, I told him that story. He's like, oh my gosh, never. I'm like, thank God. So anyways, yeah. So that's an example.
There was a particular message that sent to you.
Yeah.
And that was important to you to have that in your relationship.
Yeah,
he probably thought he was being like super nice and open and like, I'm being nice. I want you to have everything you want. You're like, what I really want is for you to fight for me.
Exactly. Yeah. And miss the boat, and that's fine. And actually it's interesting. He now, quite a few years later, he's in a polyamorous relationship. So that actually works for him.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, they've been together for almost as long as I am and I have. And I'm like, it's going well. And I'm like, more power to you. Good for you to find what you need. And I think letting him go, as hard as it was, it really served him also. in
Yeah.
the end, for sure.
Yeah. That is okay. So I'm tempted to start psychoanalyzing, and I will not. I will stay on I'm like, Shadi, he's not here, so you can't theorize
Right.
what's going on with him. He's not on.
Oh, trust me, I've done that a lot. I have it all sorted out in my own brain, which might be totally wrong, totally opposite.
When you married a narcissist who had bipolar, and you decided to stay and fix him, like it's like a PhD in psychology that I earned on my own in my house.
I think we have the same PhD. That's amazing.
Yeah.
No, I really hear you. And yeah, it's human behavior is so fascinating. It really is.
It
yeah.
Really is. So what was the weirdest date you ever went on? So I mean, you were actively dating for, it sounds like 5 or 6 years. And I love that, because I'm actually going to title this Dating as a Playground, because I just want ladies to see it as like, you can be empowered and you can go have fun. It doesn't have to be this high stakes CIA mission, which is really the energy that we often bring to it. Yeah. What were like some of the dates you went on that like stood out to you as being weird or funny or even interesting? Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, shadecurry.com/dating. That's SADECURRY.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to shadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
Oh my goodness. I've dated a lot. Like I really, really enjoy dating. So there's so many stories. I'm like, what one do I tell? One that was early on. And actually it was pretty interesting because it filled my ego at that time, right? I'm freshly out of divorce with a man where I was feeling like anything but good about myself. So I met a guy on, I think it was Plenty of Fish, and lots in common. And I knew I wasn't attracted to him physically, but I was like, I'm absolutely so interested in getting to know this person. He asked me out for dinner and I'm like, absolutely, let's go have fun. And I loved it. I was so impressed with him because he chose a really beautiful restaurant in town, and he actually like took a picture of the menu and sent it to me ahead of time. And he's like, "Ooh, I think this looks good." And I think, right. And I was like, wow, like this is really, I was being courted. It felt like this is really chivalrous of him. And I really loved that. So we had a beautiful date, lots of laughs and everything, great food. And then afterwards, he was at my house, and I'm not a sleep on the first date kind of girl, right? But we were making out and I was like, yeah, sure. This guy, like I wasn't super attractive. I'm like, this is fun or whatever. So we're making out a little. And then he like stops and he looks at me and he like both hands up in the air fits. And he's like, yes, it's like I'm the nerd in high school making out with the cheerleader.
Oh my God.
And I was like, well, this guy's not getting a second date, but that felt good.
And this makes sense that I wasn't attracted. This energy is not
absolutely
at all.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was a funny one. That was really funny. I enjoyed that one. And I had another one in mind here. Oh, this was like, oh my goodness. So I met a guy again on Plenty of Fish, and we went for coffee. It was great. His energy. So I kind of like, I love strong men, right? Who are like, take control. And I loved, when that guy sent me the menu, I'm like, wow, that felt really impressive, right? Mm-hmm. So this guy had that energy, but I was like, oh, because so did my ex. So I'm like, there's that balance of like the healthy masculine energy and then the wounded, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, so I could feel something fishy, but I ignored it because that's where I was at the time. And I invited him to a wedding that I was actually catering the next weekend. And it was a small, intimate affair. And I was like, do you want to come as my date? Right. And he's like, yeah, sure. So he came, and this is most of my really close friends. And the guy proceeded just to get so drunk, absolutely inebriated. And he's across the room and he's like, hey, woman, get me a beer. And he like snapped at me. Give me a beer. And I was like, oh, wow. And all my friends like stopped and looked at me like, what is she going to do? Right? What is she going to do? And I just said, I actually did. I grabbed it and I opened it and I walked over to him. I'm like, you could have said, please, at least. Right. And he said in front of everyone, he's like, well, I don't say please, but I show you my gratitude later. And I'm just like, no, that's not going to happen. But that was sort of like, okay, this is what I don't want. So in my search for that strong masculine energy, I really had to weed through, right? And really get to learn how to trust my intuition and really go, okay, what is that powerful, beautiful, strong masculine energy? And what is a wounded man here that I have no space for in my life? And so those are two examples of like very interesting dates. And I have so many more, but those are ones that stick out.
I actually wanted to follow up on what you talked about weeding out, because I feel like this might be something that, sounds like you've done just kind of intuitively, but so many women struggle with. So if you could kind of share some tips on doing that. So a couple of things I've noticed just with my clients and my audience is they swing from one extreme to the other. There's the extreme where they're like, I got to weed people out. So then they're swiping right on like 1 out of 1,000 men, because they're like scrutinizing that profile. And they're like, it's like with a fine tooth comb. And if there's one little hair out of place on the profile, oh, for sure. So and some of the thoughts that they have, I was like, I don't want to waste my time. He looks like this. He looks like it's almost like they, I can't quite get the word, but it's almost like they look at signs on the profile and then they project.
Right.
Like they think the man is going to be, and then they make the decision right there, even before anything else. And it's interesting, the same woman who will do that and only swipe right on the perfect guy will then get so attached to that perfect guy that then she doesn't notice his red flags, just because of a combination of scarcity. He's the perfect guy. He checks all the boxes. And I believe it's somewhere in between, that the weeding out is sort of like a process, and you have to be willing to experience things, which is what you've done so well. Is you were willing to experience all these things along the way. So could you kind of like give us an education on how you did it?
Yeah. Well, I didn't at first. I was so attached at first and very, anxiety ridden. Like, talk about anxious attachment style. Like, I was, holy, there I am. Okay. So I think the first part of it is to, again, hire a coach, do your own work, grow yourself. This always comes, learn how to respect yourself, treat yourself like you want to be treated in your date and in your partnership. Show up for you. And I believe that when you do this, it imprints in you what it feels like to be treated properly, to be loved, to be cherished. And the more you do this, and the more you show up for yourself, the more your intuition grows, the more you learn how to trust that voice inside, right? And I really do feel it. Like a big part of my coaching is embodiment, right? So I'm so deeply connected, and my clients, we really work so hard to be deeply connected to the internal felt senses, because our body always knows the truth, I believe. So learning how to be it really connected to that, where like, oh, there's something going on here and I need to pay attention to it. And from there, then you can go into your mind and you can you know, analyze it and work with that. But I really do think at first it is that coming home to yourself, number one. And I really love the approach, like I said, and like you're going to name this episode, dating is a playground. So when you're able to go and be on this playground from this centered, deep, respectful place for yourself, then you could be like, oh, that slide looks a little bit steep, but I think I'm going to give it a go, because why not? Okay. And looking at all the different things in this playground and being open, because you have no idea what experiences are there for you if you don't have them. And for me, every date, like when I went on that date with the high school and the cheerleader guy, I knew this wasn't something I wanted long term. I just knew, but I also was like, this will be fun. I will learn, I will grow. And that was a big approach I had. Okay. So internal respect, know where you're at, but still have fun with it. Allow yourself to explore, because if you can approach it as, this is to better me, this is for me, and I'm going to grow through this. And when I eventually find that person that I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to really invest in this man, you will be so much further ahead. Does this answer your question?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Like so well. So well. You mentioned the steep slide, because I think what a lot of people are doing is they're looking at the steep slide and they're like, yeah, that looks fun, but I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy it. And I don't want to have an experience that I won't enjoy.
Totally. And I think that is the brat brain coming up, thinking that, trying to keep you in the cave, trying to keep you safe, trying to think, right? But when you're like, yeah, this is a playground and I am safe, I am absolutely secure, I am with me and myself, I can have these experiences and have my own back. It doesn't mean if I go on a date with a man that I need to be physical with him. I definitely don't need a second date if I don't choose. It is always, I have agency. It is my choice every step of the way. And that, yeah, and bringing that energy into it is so powerful. I find men really like it. All of a sudden you're like, hey, and you're like, well, that was fun, right? But I love that. And another thing that I heard the second round of dating that did actually really work for me as far as the attachment is, and I don't know if it's something you would recommend. I'd be interested to hear if this is something you recommend. But what this one coach had recommended was to always have 3 people who you're seeing at the same time. And
I try to get my clients to get to 5.
Okay, like, great. So you're on board with that. Yeah. Because then you're like, if he's not texting you back, you're not, your whole energy is not towards him, and, all of these different things. And then you get to, again, your playground is vast, right? You're like, I have so many fun toys here to play with, right? So I found like that. I didn't do the second or the first round. The second round, I absolutely did. And it was awesome. It was so great. And she actually says, this one coach, she's like, and if people are, just approach it like I'm shopping for shoes. I'm here, I'm trying this shoe on, I'm trying this shoe on, and do I like this shoe? And I thought, yeah, that's really, really fun. Yeah. So I did that. And when I met my partner, I was seeing a couple other guys at the same time, and I was open and honest with him. And then we did the 90-day dating trial, which was really good, really, really good. And then I told him, if this is what you want, for me, it's so important just because it's really fun, and why not? I want you to officially ask me to be your girlfriend when you're ready. And then we'll toast some champagne together. And so it's like, I was very clear in what I wanted this experience to be like. And he showed up, and it was so neat.
Oh, that's amazing. A good way to start. That is amazing. And I love that, because there are all these formulas and they don't do this and don't do that out there. The thing is that when you say something like that because people are trying to figure out what works.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're ready for me to be your girlfriend, I want you to ask me formally. And if you say that to the guy who's not looking for a commitment, it won't, quote unquote, work. Totally. But not because you being upfront and direct is bad. It's because, no, he was the wrong guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Like, it's just when you're with the right guy, asking for what you want it's effortless, and he's ready for it and he's there for that.
Yeah. And it's so fun, and when he did, after, he was kind of like giddy, and this guy's 47, and he said, I've never asked a girl to be my girlfriend before. And, and he's like, I'm like, well, how did it happen? He goes, well, we were just hanging out and it just was sort of assumed, right? And I'm like, wow, that's neat. And so it really set the stage also for the energy in our relationship. Yeah. Moving forward. And it's really fun showing up for yourself, knowing yourself, discovering yourself in this playground and being like, this is what I want. And this is why. And I like my reasons for wanting this. And I am going for it. Yeah. And then have flexibility, because there's things that are going to surprise you. I actually had on my list, I didn't want a guy with children, or like with grown children, out of the house and no ex drama. I has a 5 and a 6-year-old and lots of ex drama, but I'm like, okay, but I'm actually so in love with his children, and I'm finding together we're navigating the ex drama beautifully. So go for what you want, but then be open, right? Yeah. That the universe, God, source, energy, whatever, really knows what you need. And 100%. I think that's a part of why you don't just want to swipe right, whatever it is. Be open. Yeah.
Be open, and be open to, even if you look at the profile and it's like, I don't know, because people are almost like, when in doubt, don't. Mm. Of course, within reason, like if the person looks like he is Freddie,
right,
big brother, for sure, swipe left.
Absolutely.
But being willing to even be out there with someone that you're pretty sure is not going to be your person. I think like just having those experiences is healthy. And if you do have a bad experience, I have one client who ended up on a date with a guy, and I guess his pictures didn't show his teeth. Mm. And she was like, I couldn't really eat my food because of how bad his teeth were. Yeah, that might happen. But so what?
Yes. It's so funny you say that, because I just remembered, and it's funny, I forgot that guy that was like the cheerleader. He had a wandering eye, and he hadn't told me before. And we're sitting over, when his pictures didn't show it, and we're sitting at dinner, and his eye kept going to the right, like it wasn't looking, it was so distracting. And I was like, and I want to be really careful, because he was really great, and lots of people have wandering eyes, and that's absolutely fine and acceptable, but I didn't know ahead of time. Yeah. So that was a distraction for sure. And I was just like, that would have been nice to have known, but I do not regret going on that at all. Right. Yeah. And you won't know until you know.
Right. Oh my God. That's the perfect phrase. You won't know until you know. Mm-hmm. Because what I found is that so many people are trying to know ahead of time. Yeah. And then the disappointment is so great. I have one client who went on a date. I think it was a blind date. They'd been set up by a friend, and the friend had told her that he was in his early 50s, and he turned out to be more like 60. Mm-hmm. And the disappointment to her was so great. The fact that her friend had lied or fudged. And I was like, you went on a date and you talked to her. He was perfectly decent. I'm not saying go on a second date. For sure, don't go on a second date because he has a kid older than you. Like, we don't really want that. Right. However, it wasn't so much that she was thinking about moving ahead. She was just having a lot of thoughts and feelings about the fact that date happened. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm. And I think I love that. It's not a big deal. When you approach it as a playground, sometimes you're going to fall off the swing. Yes. You get back up, and it's not a big deal. It's okay. Yes. And when you're coming from that, like, centered, respectful, this is about my fun and my exploration place, it's actually, it's very important that I think you fall off some swings, right?
Yes.
Put yourself out there. Yeah. Allow yourself to explore, to experience, to go, okay, this is scary and I'm going for it.
Yeah. And if it feels terrifying, that brings up all the stuff that you then want to work on. That's the stuff you want to work on with a coach. That's like, okay, I'm signing up for this, but this is very scary and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it. And that's where you get support for your mental health and for your emotions and all of that. Like that, I think that makes all the difference. That's where the growth is to allow all the stuff to come up, allow the freak out to happen, and then be like, I am the girl who's going to conquer this. I am the girl who's going to go through this and have all these experiences and come out with the prize at the end. So good.
So powerful.
So much for sharing. Like you really just articulated something that like it's been really hard for me to articulate because like I wasn't quote unquote on the market for a long time. My entire journey was about 18 months, give or take. And so for my clients who've been out there a little longer, you know, your story will probably resonate quite a bit because you had a total of about 6 years and you were out there on the playground the whole time. So I'm going to use that. And I'm like, listen, go listen to Chanci's episode. If it takes a few years, treat it like a playground, like just be out there having the experiences. So.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I love that, you know, when my experiences can serve in some way, right? And it is. And yeah. And the playground, I got some skinned knees for sure, but it's okay.
That's how that you had to go on that journey to get to where you are now.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't any happily ever after without the skin knees.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm mixing up my analogies now. Like all of the metaphors have gone out the window.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So to wrap up, is there like any advice, anything that, you know, I haven't asked that you're like, oh yeah, these ladies definitely need to know this, or just a story that you wanted to share, just something you wanted to kind of leave with the listeners about their dating journey?
I think the thing that I really think is so important is to, well, we've already touched on it, but allow this to be an experience to get to know yourself better. So I was raised in a very, very strict religious home, and I had so many ideas like conditioned put on me of how dating should be, what relationships should be, like my sexuality, all of these different things. And through dating and putting myself out there and meeting different people and having these different experiences, definitely a lot of challenges to that conditioning, right? Questioning everything. And like I shared with you, it was my very first experience after my husband had moved out. I had like this hot carpenter guy. Like I remember like watching him, felt like one of the Desperate Housewives, right? Like out my kitchen window. And once he was walking up with a ladder and my girlfriend was over and we were looking and he looked up and we both screamed and like ducked. And like it was such a ridiculous situation. But I consciously decided to really go outside of my comfort zone of what I was taught and what I thought was right and what I thought was proper, right? And I walked over to him one day and I painted my nails and I had this cute little dress. And I was like, he was working below. So I was standing up on my deck and I'm like, so do you have anything to do after? And he totally knew. He looked at me and he's like, well, I do, but I could cancel it for you. And I'm like, come on up. And we came. And that was my very first sexual experience after my partner. And I remember my whole body was like, yeah. And then I'm like, well, come on up then. And that was my first, experience. And it kind of got me into okay, here we go. Now I'm going to start dating, right? Got that first sexual experience out of the way. And I don't recommend that for everyone, right? But for me, that was such the right thing to do because of all the conditioning. And I was like, I'm going to be dating and I'm wanting to own my body and I want to, pleasure on my own terms. And that felt so empowering. So I think that's what I want to say. Discover yourself. Let your heart be broken wide open to you. question the conditioning, question what you think is right, question all of it, because it is the playground. And through that, when you find your partner, the person you decide to grow a life together with, you are going to be so much more equipped because you are going to know yourself so much more. Yeah. So I think that's why dating is such a gift. It really is. Yeah. Not that I want to do it again. Like, I'm so happy where I'm at right now, but but I also feel very dated by him, which is important to me as well. So I knew that coming into it, and it's that we have date nights every Wednesday, and it's wonderful. So
well,
yes.
Of course. Yes. 100%. Like, it's not so much that you want to be dating the whole time. It's that you explored the whole playground. You got all the gifts. Have no desire to be back on the playground. It's like, okay, now I'm in 6th grade now.
Yeah. Like, okay, that playground's good, but it's so out of my league now, or I'm out of its league now, moving on, whatever, how you want to put that. But I'm just, it's such a neat experience. And I'm actually really looking forward to my teens dating and seeing that and guiding them through it, and being able to especially really empower my daughter. She's 15. She has no interest right now, but when she does, I'm like, this is going to be really
a lot of fun.
Neat. Yeah.
My daughter's currently dating. She's 21, and I think it's brought us closer together because I was so open about my dating journey. And we've been able to have these conversations, like everything, all the guys, all the things she thinks about them. And of course, it's different because she's in her 20s and, I was in my 40s. So it is different. Yeah. However, it's like, I know so much more. And I think she feels empowered just because I didn't make it weird.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
I didn't make it weird because I grew up. I chose to grow up through my own dating journey. I was like, all right, wherever we stopped our, emotional growth at 19 or 20 when we got married, let's finish up that exploration and self-discovery and figuring out who I am and what I want. And I think that's, so I it's going to be amazing. I would love to hear all about it when your daughter starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Super pumped for it.
Chanci, thank you so much. This has been one of my best episodes. Like, it's just going to just no formulas, just like really that, like, that internal journey. I appreciate you just sharing so much from how you process that and how you walk through that. So thank you so much.
Oh, you are so welcome. This has just been such a joy. I've loved it.
Absolutely. Please tell the listeners if they're interested in learning more about the anti-diet, nutrition, getting healthy, owning themselves, embodying, themselves. Where can they find you? Just spell out your handles where they can connect with you.
Sure. So Instagram is The Embodied Nutritionist, and ChanciDawn.com is my website. So you can find me at those places. And I'm on Facebook too, but just follow me, Chanci Dawn, whatever, we'll connect, we'll be friends. But Instagram, I'm really trying to build it. So follow me there.
I got Instagram. Go up, I hear you. Instagram, a different animal.
I'm trying to pretend it's a playground. I'm not quite there yet. It feels like I don't want this life, but yes.
Isn't that interesting? We take that experience into the next adventure.
Totally.
Thank you so much for sharing, Chanci. Listeners, thank you for your time and attention. All of Chanci's information will be linked up in the show notes. So please make sure you follow her, connect with her, help her Instagram numbers go up. But even more so, I want to encourage you to listen to her podcast and just really hear like how it can be so different, the way we look at our bodies, the way we think about our bodies. We often have this war going on in our minds around our bodies. And I just love that you're doing that work, setting so many people free. And, thank you again for coming on the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. See you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training
specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to sadecurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.